What is up, guys? TEJ here, and in today's video we are going to be reviewing the brand new Cleveland RTX6 ZipCore wedges. So let's get right into it. Alright guys, so the RTX6 wedges from Cleveland Golf, these are actually the 6th iteration of RTX wedges and the 2nd iteration of the ZipCore design. So you might be asking yourself, what exactly is ZipCore? Well, it's essentially a high density core that sits in the hosel of the wedges that allows Cleveland Golf to shift that center of gravity closer to the middle of the face, shift that sweet spot closer to the middle of the face away from the hosel, and additionally increase the MOI or forgiveness of the wedges. Now this is the 2nd iteration of the ZipCore models, but a big technology they've added into these wedges is actually called HydroZip. And what HydroZip is a way that Cleveland has designed the face of the wedge to have a lot more crevices throughout, really helping disperse water in wet weather conditions. So what you'll notice about these RTX6 ZipCore wedges is they should perform better, lower launch angles, higher spin rates in wet weather conditions over the original ZipCore model. Now you might wonder, is HydroZip similar to what Ping has done with the Hydra Pearl finish? And the answer is not really. See, the Hydra Pearl finish from Ping is an actual hydrophobic finish that helps repel water. HydroZip, on the other hand, is really just an increased amount of crevices that kind of helps disperse water away from the impact spot. And the last main piece of tech in these RTX6 ZipCore wedges is going to be Ulti-Zip, and what that is Cleveland's most aggressive groove ever, and it's not in the way you think. You see, these wedges are still USGA legal, but what Cleveland has done is they found a way in the manufacturing process to have extremely tight tolerances from a tooling perspective, which in turn makes these wedges more aggressive from a consistency standpoint. So really what they're doing is they're replacing the tooling more often, which in turn should see more consistent aggressiveness throughout all of their wedges. Another interesting thing that Cleveland does in their wedges is they actually get progressively more aggressive as you move from pitching wedge to gap wedge to sand and lob wedge. And the theory here is you don't necessarily need to be ripping back, say 46 degrees or 50 degrees, but obviously as you get around the greens into a 60 degree, a 58 degree, you're gonna want as much spin as possible. And I really love that. I think it makes these wedges very playable straight out of the box. Now the RTX6 ZipCores are gonna be offered in 3 different finishes. You have your Tour Satin, you've got Black Satin, and then you also have Tour Rack or Raw, which is what we have right here. In terms of a stock shaft, you're going to be looking at the Dynamic Gold Tour Issue Spinner, and as far as the grip goes, you're going to be looking at the Golf Pride Tour Velvet 360 grip. Loft-wise, these RTX6 ZipCores are available in 46 through 60 degree in 2 degree increments, and they offer 4 different grind options. You have your low, medium, and full bounce grinds, and they also have a really cool low plus bounce grind that is going to be available in your sand wedges. So if you're a player who really prefers lower bounce in their sand wedges, you are going to have that option in the low plus bounce grind. Additionally, through Cleveland's website, you can actually get these hand ground to spec if you need a unique grind for your style of play. They also offer custom stamping and paint fill on these RTX6 ZipCores. In terms of a retail price, the Tour Satin and Black wedges are available for $169.99, and the Tour Rack or Raw finish is available for $189.99. If you want a custom grind, they start at around $15 to $25 depending on what you want. As far as custom stamping and paint fill, those are also $15 each for these wedges. Now that is pretty much a full rundown on the RTX6 ZipCores. So let's head out to the golf course and get to testing. All right guys, so we're out here on the golf course now, and what we're gonna do is kind of start around the green, hit some basic chip shots, and then kind of move our way back to around 100 yards. So right here, we've got a pretty basic pitch across the green. As we look down at these RTX6 ZipCores, definitely a very classic look. A little bit more rounded, I would say, at address. I prefer a little bit more rounded look in the wedges and then more squared off in the irons. And to me, these look very good. So let's go ahead and hit sort of a basic chip shot here. Very nice feel. That one checked up pretty well. And that's going to leave me a pretty short putt at par. We'll switch over to a 56 now and kind of hit a little bit more of a lower shot. And once again, very good. Might go in. Oh, lipped out. Yeah, in terms of feel, very nice and soft. I do really like the look of the wedges, so let's move on to the next short game shot. All right, guys, so we've moved on from the pretty basic shot to a much harder shot now. We're very short-sighted here. We're kind of going uphill. We got a false front. Got to kind of carry it on top of the false front with some spin. So shouldn't be too much of an issue. Cleveland is known for having some very spinny wedges. Let's see if that holds true in the RTX6 ZipCores. Oh yeah, very decent amount of spin there. We'll hit one more. Yeah, and another good one. So I think in terms of grooves, these are some of the most aggressive on the market, which is something I've always loved that Cleveland does very well. And this RTX6 ZipCore, no exception, very spinny in terms of grooves, so very solid. Right, guys, so next shot we got here is sort of your pretty, I would say, basic bunker shot. Not really short-sighted, decent amount of green to work with, and we're going to kind of see how these move through the bunker. Not really a great swing. Decent result. We'll hit one more. A little bit better. And might go... Yeah, good shot. Something that I've always loved that Cleveland has done is in their low bounce wedges, I feel like they're very versatile. With a lot of companies, I find myself really needing to have a low bounce option and then a high bounce option. With Cleveland, I've always felt like I could use this low bounce in firm conditions, like that sand is a little bit more firm, but also like grainy Bermuda down there, it does a very good job of being versatile. So from a bounce / grind perspective, I think that Cleveland does a very good job, especially with this low bounce option. All right, guys, so now we've kind of moved our way back to about maybe 40, 50 yards. Gonna try to hit 2 shots, a little bit higher and softer, and then we'll go a little bit lower with hopefully more spin. See what I can do. Got a 60 here. A little bit deep. Should spin though. Yeah, tons of spin on that. Right, now onto our lower / spinnier one. Kind of move the camera angle, so hopefully you could see it a little bit better. See what I can do. Sit. Didn't really get the contact I wanted, but that's more on me than the wedge. Overall, 2 pretty decent shots. I mean, in terms of, being able to hit the shot you want, I think that's a really important thing when it comes to wedges. And I think with Cleveland, they've done a really good job at really giving you a lot of shots, giving you a lot of options, which at the end of the day is going to be the most important thing when it comes to short game and getting tough shots like this up and down. So from that perspective, very, very solid in my opinion. Okay, guys, so now we've moved back to around 100 yards. We're on a different hole. And what I'm going to try to do here is sort of work the ladder. So we'll start at a 60 degree and kind of work our way down the ladder to a 50 degree and kind of see the shots we can hit. In an ideal world, 100 yards is close to a full 60, and then as you get down to a 50, that's going to be a very flighted shot. So we'll see how they perform on these different types of shots. Good one there. Little deep. Should spin. Oh yeah. Sit. Don't spin too much. All right. Very solid shot right there. Moving on to the 56 now, and this is going to be more of a flighted sort of shot. Might be a little deep. Sit. Sit. Spin. Yeah. Another good one there. All right, guys, so I picked up the golf balls, and I actually moved over a little bit because I realized over there it doesn't really make sense to try to drive that shot in lower because you actually have to come in over the bunker. But this is a great example of when you would probably try to drive in a little bit lower. So you got the 50 degree in hand. I'm going to try to just skip one back there, see what we can do. Not a great shot. That's more on me than the wedge. Just didn't get the contact I wanted. We'll try one more, though. That one's actually good. Sit a little. Sit. Oh, yeah. That one was really good. I think in terms of flightability, it's definitely there. If you're a skilled player and you can hit the shot, obviously my first one kind of sucked, but my second one was really good. And so I think from a flightability perspective, like I said, it is definitely there. If you want to be able to do it, you're going to be able to with these RTX6 wedges. All right, guys, so back from the golf course now, and let's break these wedges down a little bit deeper, starting with looks. Now, in terms of the backing of the wedges, I do think it's a little bit futuristic, and in my opinion, it's not something that I personally love. I think that wedges should sort of have a classic, clean design, but it's not something that would necessarily turn me away, and I do think they still look solid sitting in your bag, and I absolutely love the raw finish on these wedges. At address, I think these are very well done from a shaping perspective. A little bit more rounded, which is something that I prefer in a wedge. I prefer my wedges to be a little bit more rounded, my irons to be a little bit more squared off. And to me, these are a very classic, clean looking shape, which I think is very well done. Now moving into offset, and these definitely have a little bit more than most, which is not something that I personally love. I don't really like offset in my irons, especially in short irons and into wedges. And really what exaggerates the offset look in these wedges is sort of the cutout between the hosel and leading edge. That transition there is kind of indented, and in turn it makes it look like these wedges have even more offset than they actually do. Now, in the lob wedge, it's very minimal. It's not bad, but as you move into the gap wedge, as you move into the pitching wedge, it's definitely there, and it's just not something that I think is a great look, at least in my opinion. As far as feel goes, there's really not much else for me to say other than that these wedges feel absolutely great. They are incredibly soft all around the face, and definitely some of the best feeling wedges I have tested in recent history. Moving into launch and spin now, and these are very solid from that perspective. If you're the type of player that prefers to use high launch and land angle to stop their wedge shots, you can absolutely do it with these wedges. And with that being said, if you're somebody who's on the other end, you prefer to kind of launch these lower with a little bit more spin, I found that that was no issue for me at all. From a spin perspective, these are easily some of the most aggressive grooves on the market and performed absolutely fantastically for me in dry conditions. Whether it be spinning a short pitch shot, bunker shot, or a longer, fuller wedge shot, I never felt like the grooves were not aggressive enough for my game. Getting into versatility now, and this is an area where I have always felt like Cleveland has been successful, and that is no exception in these RTX6 ZipCores. You kind of heard me talk about it on the golf course, but with a lot of other companies with the 60 degrees, I always find myself needing to carry two lob wedges, a lower bounce and a higher bounce option. But with Cleveland in the low bounce 60 degree, I feel like it is plenty versatile for soft conditions and firm conditions, and it is something that I do prefer over other companies. Additionally, Cleveland has done a great job at offering different style grinds for different swing types. They also offer custom hand ground designs for very unique styles of play. And something they've really done a great job of with this year is they're offering that low plus bounce grind that is going to be available in the sand wedges. So if you're a lower bounce player, you prefer to kind of have that in your sand wedge, you're going to be able to get it this year, which I think is great to see. Now, the last area I want to get into is wet performance. You heard me talk about Hydra Zip earlier and kind of discuss what it is, but I wanted to put it to the test and see how these actually perform when the grooves and golf ball get wet. So what I went ahead and did is tested it on GC quad off a mat so we could kind of eliminate any human error. I hit 50, 80, and 100 yard shots with the golf ball and grooves being dry and golf ball and grooves being a bit wet. So go ahead and hit pause right now to check out that chart with all the numbers. So what you'll notice about that chart is on the fuller shots with more speed, the spin retention and launch retention was actually very impressive. In fact, I actually gained spin on the fuller 100 yard shot. But with that being said, as I moved closer, 50 and 80 yards, that is where I saw spin and launch really change as I got water on the face and golf ball. Now, I'm no scientist, but I do have a theory as to what's going on. When you're swinging the club with more speed, more air is hitting it and in turn dispersing water better. So on those fuller, faster speed shots, they're retaining lower launch angles and higher spin. But with that being said, as you move up and kind of hit those closer shots, the air is not hitting the golf club as hard, and in turn it's not dispersing water as easily. And so because of that, the grooves are still having water on them and you're seeing lower spin with higher launch angles like you would with a lot of other wedges on the market. So to conclude, does Hydra Zip work? Well, I think it's complicated, but I would say kind of. I think that on those fuller shots with more speed, Hydra Zip definitely does work. The air is dispersing the water very well and it's allowing you to retain launch and spin. But on those shorter shots, it's not quite dispersing it as quickly, and in turn water is staying in the grooves. The launch is high and the spin is low. In my opinion, Ping has done the wet weather performance best by actually having a finish that is hydrophobic. It repels water. So what I think would be interesting to see is if you combined that sort of hydrophobic finish with Hydra Zip grooves. I think if you did something like that where it repelled water, but any water that got in there was dispersed, you might have something very special on your hands. So it'll be interesting to see if Cleveland works on doing something like that in their next iteration of wedges. So that pretty much covers all my thoughts on the RTX6 ZipCores. And in terms of a rating, I'm going to give these a 9.2 out of 10. Now, 9.2 is not a low score by any means, but I do have a few critiques that are kind of keeping these wedges from being rated even higher. The first is going to be the backing. Now, it's not terrible. It's not something that would keep me from buying the wedges, but I do wish it had a little bit more of a classic look on the back. The second thing for me, and the main thing, is going to be the offset. It's a bit much, and it's not something that's going to turn everybody away. It really depends on the type of player you are and what you prefer. But with that being said, I wish it was lessened, or at least they kind of fixed up that hosel to leading edge transition to make it appear like these wedges have less offset than they actually do. It's something that I would like to see in the next iteration of wedges from Cleveland. Additionally, and another thing that I think needs work, is Hydra Zip. For me personally, it just wasn't quite great on those shorter to medium type shots. On the fuller shots though, it worked great. So what I'd really like to see them do is combine Hydra Zip with some sort of hydrophobic finish. I think if they did something like that, these would absolutely be amazing in wet weather conditions. Overall though, I do think this is a very solid release from Cleveland Golf and an improvement over the original ZipCores, which is exactly what you want to see from a company. The shaping is great, feel is soft, spin is fantastic, and they offer a ton of different grind options and very affordable hand ground options if you need it for your style of play. Overall, I think that makes for a very solid release from Cleveland and something I think a lot of people will thoroughly enjoy gaming in the wedge portion of their bag. Guys, that's a video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to give it a like. Comment if you have any questions at all. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Go ahead and click that notification bell, and also make sure you're following us on our other socials: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok. We'll catch you in the next video. Peace.